Welcome, everybody, to today's live episode brought to you by Demand Shift and Gunder. We're going to be talking about what's next for direct mail, an open conversation with 5 of Gunder's experts. We've got them all here from different areas of the country, different home offices. We've got 5 different speakers here, fresh off the industry's biggest annual event. You're going to hear more about that, some of the things they learned, some of the things the team has been talking about. What is a live stream without some technical difficulties? So let us know, guys, is the chat working? Just let us know where you're joining in from. Introduce yourself in the chat as we make the rounds for introductions here with everybody. We've got Mike Gunderson, Lindsay Weisgerber, Bethany McKay, Sheila Lalani, and Denise Cruz Castino. I think I got that right, Denise. I was practicing a
You
couple
did.
times as
You
we were
did.
getting there. You guys, if you can stay the whole time, I want to encourage you. This is going to be an open format. We've got some highlights from the industry conference that we mentioned earlier that we're going to be covering, but your questions, you can drop them in the chat. Lots of engagement already. I see folks from every area of the country, a good bit of California represented, as with the Gunder team. Just to give you guys a little bit of a preview of the agenda before we get into introductions, we're going to be talking about kind of the 20-year view up to now of direct mail, looking back a little bit. We're going to look at some common advice that may be being proven wrong through some tests. The postage increase that, as the time of this stream and recording, we're about a month out, that is looming. We've got some ideas for you on that. Building audiences in a new way, what's working with some active campaigns across Gunder clients, and a story about storytelling. I always love a little bit of a meta moment. Mike, how about you kick it off with some introductions, and we'll go around the horn and give everybody's kind of perspective and their. We've got so many different disciplines represented here on the conversation today, so I think that'll be important as we introduce everybody more fully. Oh, you're muted, Mike. Oh, I think I heard you now. Okay, well, we can hear you in the chat, but now we can't hear Mike. Lindsay, I guess you're up. Let's do intros here, and we'll go around from there.
Sure. Sounds great. Hi, I am Lindsay Weisgerber, and I am the COO at Gunder. I've been here for about 3 years, but I have 19 years of experience. I started my career at a traditional agency called Tracy Locke. It is owned by Omnicom, and I got to work on 2 large brands, Del Monte Foods and Pizza Hut. I think you guys all know Pizza Hut. I got to do all their national print and merchandising, food photography, packaging, you name it. I was there when they rebranded to the Hut, so you might remember that. And then when they pivoted back to just their nostalgic brand with the old school roof icon, so I got to live through all of that. I then transitioned into the nonprofit side of the business, supporting, large nonprofit organizations, building multi-channel fundraising programs for them, which was so rewarding. I got to work with some amazing organizations and really challenge myself in the career. That is where the data really meets the strategy, and going from a world in the traditional side, which was all about transactional, to the fundraising side, which was more about relationship driven marketing, really challenged myself and got the opportunity to build lifecycle marketing skills and had the great opportunity to just dive into all the analytics and the data. That brings me to Gunder, where I get the opportunity to oversee our creative, data, production, and account service teams. I get to kind of blend all of my experience from both sides of the business. And it is just an honor to really focus on direct mail. And that is kind of our niche. And all of the people on this call today just get to really live and breathe this channel and make sure that we're bringing all of our backgrounds and expertise to making it such a rewarding channel. And it's living, breathing, growing, changing. And so we're excited today to bring kind of all the experience and expertise that we have and just have a really candid conversation with everyone. So now I'll pass it over to Mike, who's back.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you.
All right, Jesus. Yeah, Mike Gunderson. I've been at the helm here at Gunder for over 20 years. Absolutely love direct mail and what we're doing. And then I'm also president and CEO of Post Reminder, which is a direct mail QR code technology, and super excited to talk about the future of direct mail with you guys.
Awesome. All right, Bethany, you're just to the right of Mike, at least on my screen. So why don't you give us your brief intro and a little bit about what you do at Gunder?
Of course. So hello, I'm Bethany. I've been with Gunder about a year and a half. And prior to coming to Gunder, I actually served agencies much like Gunder. So my background is in data. All things data. I like to say data is fun, and I really truly believe that. So I spent 25 years really digging in. There are so many providers out there. It is a confusing landscape for a lot of people to procure data and quality data. So I spent a lot of time looking at sourcing, data compilation strategies, how different vendors had strengths and weaknesses. They're not all created equally. So looking at all of those things and then being able to bring all of that knowledge here to Gunder and being able to identify the best data sets for every campaign that we do for a client. It's not just about kind of going out and saying, oh, age and income and some basic level demographics. It's really about digging in and finding personas and people with interest and looking at new ways to find how people are interested in what they're interested in. So that brings me joy. That's why I think data is fun. There's so much of it out there and there's so much to learn every day, and how you can utilize that to get the best results for every campaign.
Yep, we're going to be talking about how building audiences with data has kind of changed. There's kind of been a flip in the order that we look at things for direct mail programs. Sheila Lalani, I'd love to kick it over to her, Director of Production here at Gunder. Sheila, let's do a brief intro for you as well.
Hi, everyone. So Bethany and I started on the same day. So I've been at Gunder for a year and a half. And prior to that, I was with AT&T and helped them build an internal production studio where we managed millions of mailings. And prior to that, I've worked in like fashion industry, so high-end direct mail catalogs. I also worked with Lindsay and Omnicom agency and worked on Pizza Hut. So that was really cool because we managed mailings like in the thousands for small franchisees to large, also in the millions campaigns for larger clients. So I've really worked on a large gamut of direct mail pieces, and I've produced collateral, just tried to problem solve when we needed something special like a pop-up. And so I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. All right. And last but not least, Denise, I'll kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm the creative director at Gunder. I'm the newer one at the company, and I've been here for 6 months now, but I'm not new to advertising. I've been in advertising for over 20 years as a copywriter, and I started in traditional advertising. And that's where we really focused on concepts, strategy, and understanding human behavior. And that's how we created ads. So over the last several years, I've moved into direct mail, and that stuff is still really important. So I've worked on hundreds of different campaigns and industries, and it really is important to get their attention through those types of things. So that's really what I want to talk about, is how important it is for concept strategy and understanding human behavior in direct mail.
I love it. Well, let's dive right in. Mike, I'd love to kick it over to you. As we said in the agenda, you've been in this space for 20 years, coming fresh off the industry conference here within the last month. You and I and the team were kind of reflecting on kind of what's changed, what's the same over the last 20 years. What was kind of top of mind for you coming out of it?
Well, I think one of the big things is just realizing that direct mail is still the one place you can really get the consumer and prospect's attention in the mailbox. I mean, on average, I think there's around 4,000 ad impressions a day that a consumer sees, and your mailbox has between 8 and 10 pieces of mail every day. So, the mailbox demands your attention, no matter what. Even if you're actually walking to the trash can, you're ultimately interacting with that piece of mail. You're reading it and you're seeing if it's important. And I like to say, like, direct mail, like it demands attention, but good direct mail demands response. And so, if we do our job right, and we get that piece of mail to the right person, when they go to their mailbox, it's something they're interested in, hopefully they're going to be responding to that piece. So that's one of the key takeaways, is I think there's a real opportunity here to actually build more awareness, brand awareness, product awareness, service awareness through the mailbox, and really hand deliver these offers to consumers. And then the other thing that's kind of striking is just kind of what we can do with direct mail at this point. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, attribution was important, but it wasn't so important back then. Now it's super important that we get credit back to the direct mail program because there's so many channels kind of competing for that attention. And here at Gunder, we love the digital channel. We wouldn't say that direct mail is better or worse than the digital channel, and we think that combined they work really well together. But we still have to prove those metrics, and we have to prove those numbers to our clients. So it's super important that we're, very cognizant on how people are scanning QR codes, whether or not there's a personalized phone number, personalized URL, or an offer code, and making sure that when we do the match back, that we're actually setting up our holdouts correctly and making sure that we can attribute back the response to the actual direct mail program. That's good for obviously the marketers we work with, and it's just really great for the channel. So because of that, because of AI, and because of a whole bunch of other reasons, the analytics and the way that we do that has become much more sophisticated, and we can get much cleaner results back to the direct mail program.
Absolutely. There's so many things fighting for our attention as marketers, and not just our prospects and our potential customers' attention, but our attention. What channels? Where do we throw budget? All of those sorts of things. I think that that's absolutely the case. One thing that's changing a little bit, but maybe staying the same, Lindsay came up in a conversation we were having the other day, was around kind of this age-old adage of fewer CTAs, the better. Now, there are some places that you guys are seeing with clients where that's still absolutely true, but some ways where you're kind of having to convince clients of kind of a new way of thinking about this kind of age-old piece of advice. We want to explain a little bit about where that's coming up with clients and some of the things that you guys are working on at Gunder.
Sure, yeah. It's all about meeting the consumer kind of where they are. And so Mike just did a great presentation at the National Postal Forum around how you have the standard best practices for your CTA. And we need to make sure that we're giving everybody all the options, whether it's scanning a QR code, going to a phone number, or visiting a URL. Everybody likes to digest content in different ways. What's really cool, though, is we have a proprietary innovative QR code called Post Reminder. And this allows people to scan a QR code and then decide whether they want to set a reminder to go back to that direct mail piece, or if they want to just quickly go into, I want to shop now, I want to buy now, I want to convert quickly. And we get the question a lot from clients that's, well, you're providing multiple CTAs. Are you going to get more people abandon versus proceed? And this is where we are seeing a shift in the industry. It's actually putting the power into the prospect's hands, letting them make the decision or tailor that experience to themselves and to their lifestyle. And so, they're able to customize their own reminder, whether that's via a text message, a calendar invite, or an email, or like I said, they can go right into making that purchase decision or conversion. And we're seeing that is lifting overall response rate because consumers are being able to set their own preferences, but also we're seeing that it extends the life cycle of the direct mail piece, which is really cool. And we're able to track that engagement over time. Additionally, it gives opportunities for people to share it with a friend. And so it's really cool from an analytics perspective. We have a dashboard that we can quickly read results around how people are engaging with that direct mail piece, whether they're setting reminders, they're converting, or they're sharing with friends. And so I'll kick it over to Mike or Bethany to see if they have any, anecdotal feedback around that as well.
I do. One thing that we see consistently is when people are scanning that QR code, it tends to be scanned beyond the time frame that the clients think it's going to be scanned. So they're like, this is how long or typically our campaigns run. We get most of our response within this time frame. Time and time again, when we do our analytics, we see they're getting clicks on that QR code far downstream. They're holding on to it. It's staying on their counter. They're interested. They don't have time that day. They come back, they scan, and we know it. So we can change somebody's campaign cycle and say, hey, maybe we need to measure a little further out. You have a little bit of a tail there. And I think that's really important because people don't realize that. And that is not something that they can get from an immediate digital impression. That comes, it's gone. You can't really track it beyond that point. But with the QR code in direct mail, you can, and you can really see that time frame adjust.
I love that. When we were talking the other day, you guys, it kind of reminded me of, every e-commerce brand has an abandoned cart flow, if not multiple, right? And so we know that human behavior is, I'm about to make a purchase, but maybe not yet for whatever reason, right? The Amazon man knocked on the door and the dog started barking, and or whatever the case might be, right? And so I see what you guys are helping clients enact in some of these campaigns with these reminders, basically kind of a abandoned cart for direct mail. Mike, do you think that's a fair comparison there?
Yeah, I mean, we like Post Reminder mainly because it does what Lindsay says. It puts the options in the consumer's hands. And even though our brands sometimes want to say, well, we want to drive them right to our landing page, let's get that done. It's important from a brand impression, especially if it's your first interaction with a brand, that you're providing that choice to the consumer. So I think that's pretty cool. But going back to abandoned cart, retargeting direct mail is. I always say to people who are like unsure about going into direct mail, just do a retargeting postcard to start off with. You can set a budget of like $200, $500, $5,000. And what you're doing is anybody who's coming to your website based off of a couple of rules that you set up will get a retargeted postcard if they abandon cart or leave the site without transacting. And this is super powerful because they have high intent. They went to your website. They may have, maybe, to be honest, maybe your website was a little overly complicated, or maybe it was too long, or maybe the decision process was just not, they weren't in the right frame of mind. They're going to receive that direct mail piece, just a few days. It's first class, pre-sort first class. It gets right to them, and bam, like they have this in their mailbox. They have instant recall from a day or two ago, and that postcard can leverage maybe a 25% coupon, or a buy one, get one free, or something else to re-engage that prospect. And again, if you've never done direct mail, this is perfect because you literally don't have to spend a lot of money. You can stop it at any point that you want to, and you can look at it and say, does this make sense for our business? Did I spend $2,000 and get 2,000 worth of sales out of this or not? And if you didn't, then you're really not out a huge marketing spend. But if you did, you can scale it based off of how many visitors you have to your website, and you can really drive more interaction and more transactions utilizing retargeting.
Yeah, and I'd love to speak to the fact that we are also doing retargeting for B2B clients, which is interesting, right? Based on this kind of hybrid work environment that we all are living in, we are not only from an acquisition perspective able to target people at businesses, but we're also able through retargeting to target them at their home. So it's taking their website traffic, but it's actually targeting at their home. So you're creating this awesome like halo effect of whether they're in office or at home. And we are seeing like 3 times the increase of response when doing so. So it's definitely just a clever way also to overcome some of the challenges that we're seeing targeting businesses as well.
I love what Dan just said in the chat, you guys. He said, I love the idea of a postcard offer starting a process on the website, right? And so basically he said, I get plenty of abandoned cart emails. We all know when I said abandoned cart flow, we're like, yes, 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 we've gotten all of those, right? But they become so much noise. Kind of goes back to what Mike was saying, would you say 4,000 ad impressions a day, 8 to 10 pieces in the mailbox. When was the last time you had like 10, 12, 15, 20 pieces of mail when you went to the mailbox? If that happened, you're like, oh, geez, like what is all of this, right?
Well, from an email perspective, you really don't have control of your inbox unless you go in and create a bunch of settings on how to get your promo mail out of your promo mail box that Google or Yahoo or whatever you're using automatically sorts. You may not even be seeing a lot of these messages. Even if you're a customer, you may not be seeing these messages. So when there's an opportunity to reach somebody where they have to interact with you or your brand, I mean, this is a very, very great, very good tactic to use in order to get that consideration of the consumer.
Yeah, I think we said weren't you guys telling me it was like a 9.5% increase in conversions for one client recently, kind of putting in the options with post reminder as opposed to only being able to convert at one point. Is that right?
Yeah, we're seeing that kind of across the board with clients. They're seeing higher conversion rates. They're actually seeing their scan rates increase. If they do something with their call to action, make it a little bit more interesting, they're seeing increases in their call to action, making the QR code more prominent. But if they're doing nothing to their QR code, they're not seeing any drop in QR code scans, but they're actually seeing higher click-through rates, and they're seeing higher conversions at the end of it.
Yeah. So it's on that second part where kind of the age old advice is changing, right? So we're not saying throw a bunch of different QR codes, bunch of different CTAs in your direct mail piece. So we want to have a nice clear call to action, but then giving them options after they've decided
Yeah.
to take that first step, where it might still feel counterintuitive. If I give them more options, then it'll be analysis paralysis. But you guys are seeing in the data that that's not really the case.
Yeah.
Sheila, I wanted to come over to you to talk a little bit about both the postage increase coming and some of the technology when it comes to direct mail that you guys have been talking about. Was kind of some buzz around NFP or MPF, those sorts of things. So where would you like to start there?
Well, while everyone sees that the postage increase is coming, most marketers don't see the amount of innovation that's happening behind the scenes to help offset those costs. One of the biggest changes that we're seeing is the continued evolution of inline production technology. Historically speaking, when we wanted to do like specialty effects like metallic inks or UV, it often required like separate production steps. Well, now many of the enhancements can be applied all in line during the printing process. And so that speeds up production and that helps offset postage costs because we can utilize like USPS tactile promotion. But what's really exciting is that we're seeing major advancement in automation and postal optimization, whereas we can actually print and sort and it comes offline. It comes like during the inline process, it goes into trays and sorts down to the zip like code level, and it can be trayed and then sent to the USPS destination as it's being produced, all in one big long piece of equipment. The mail file is analyzed up front and then it's sorted. Also, there's commingling in line now. So it's not just one step where you have to print it and sort it and manually send it to a commingler. All of this is happening like in line. And so it's very exciting. We are actually seeing in some programs like a 40% discount. So it can have a significant impact as rates continue to rise.
Because the technology is you're eliminating these different steps, different vendors, different pieces of equipment that are having to touch it, and still getting a better creative, more personalization, all of these sorts of things at once. Is that kind of the factors that are playing into those savings, Sheila?
Yes, because it's like one piece of equipment that's handling all of these things, we're cutting down production timing. And then we're getting it closer to the USPS entry point. So that cuts, the production or sorry, the postage costs down because they provide a discount because we're getting closer into their network. So it can have a significant impact as rates continue to rise. And so it's really helpful for us to mitigate postal quantities. And it's not just for the quantities that are in the millions. We're seeing this for lower quantities as well. So we're excited to offer this, as a service for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a good time to pull this one up. We had a good example of some of the personalization that's possible with some of this new inline methodology and technology that's going along with it. What are we seeing here, Sheila, and the team as well?
So this is super exciting because this is another inline envelope personalization. So marketers often focus what's on the inside of the envelope, but engagement will really start, before the piece is ever opened. So with this technology, personalized messaging and graphics on the envelope has become much more affordable and easier to implement. And again, when I say inline, this means that this is happening on one piece of equipment and it's not a separate piece where you have to print it and then put this personalization on another printer. This is all done at the same time, and so it's really exciting to see everything that you can put on an OE and how it's personalized. You see people's last names in an image. So we're just really excited about all the innovation that's coming out now.
Yeah. I wonder, maybe Lindsay, Bethany, either of you have any thoughts on this? As you know, Bethany, we know data is your thing. Some of this personalization, Lindsay, you and I have talked a little bit about personalization not just being, first name, last name, location, some of those things that were, effective 10, 15 years ago, but we're able to do so much here. Curious what y'all's thoughts were on this piece and kind of what it means for others running similar campaigns or looking to do similar personalization.
Yeah, I think this is such a great example because I think that sometimes the challenge for our clients is, do they have the data to be able to do this? And you got to get creative with this. So you have to look at your CRM, and we partner with our clients to look at all the different data fields that they have. But this gives you options in order to find how you can make it personalized beyond just, first and last name, which I think is really clever and really fun. And so I would just encourage you, if you feel like the data is the challenge, right? Work with your agency or work with your team internally to identify what data do we actually have and how can we make this possible. And I think that this is such a fun and unique way to kind of stand out in the mailbox. Everybody loves getting something that personally relates to them. And so it's also really cool because, to Sheila's point, this used to be really expensive, and now it's becoming more affordable and accessible to more people, which I think is, if you haven't done this before because of cost, try again, because we have new technology and we're able to do this at a much lower cost.
Yeah, I think this is such a fun example because, we all love things with our name on it, but usually marketing, it's like, oh, hello, first name. Hi, Mike, question for you at Gunder, right? But this, just seeing your name or your last name on a license plate, like we still buy those for our kids, right? You go and you spin the rack and, oh, do they have my name? They never had my name growing up or my brother's. And now my kids can never find theirs. But this is so cool. And I'm even thinking like, okay, male versus female, maybe you go red in one case or blue with the car in another, depending on kind of what some of the data is telling you and interests and those sorts of things. There's even more opportunity, I think, even on top of this, which is already so personalized and so custom. I don't know if you guys can see on the screen, but each license plate is also specific to the state. It's not just the name that's being put in there. So this sort of stuff, I think, is really cool with the technology in the way that it's changing. This is a good springboard into Bethany maybe talking a little bit about the way that we use data in order to build our audiences has kind of flipped. Maybe that's not the best way to put it. You're the expert here. I'll just shut up and let you talk to us about data and audience building and what's kind of changed and where the conversation's going there for direct mail.
Sure. So to start, let's just go back a little bit, right? So everything was direct mail, and then all of a sudden, everything was digital. And like Mike said, it's not a war, direct mail against digital. It's working together. But initially, it was always about figuring out who was acting and engaging online. And so identity graphing became a really important piece to tie the online and the offline. But all you really heard about was compilers and vendors or customers loading their data to online audiences, allowing it to be utilized online. And I think that flip that's kind of happening is, when you do that, you're marrying online and offline together. So you don't need to only look at using it on a digital platform. That can also come back out to you. So what you're seeing is, just like we talked about with retargeting, you're taking digital activity and you're putting it in the mail and you're connecting with them via a different channel. Because when you continue to speak to people in the same way, in the same kind of black box of digital or on social or using, just ad impressions somewhere, you maybe are missing what would come from that outside. So I feel like what's happening is postal data is now being enriched by all of this digital activity. If I'm online and I'm following somebody on social media, I can go into a group and be modeled. Now we can look and find people who look like me who also follow these particular influencers online. And that becomes a data point that you can use in direct mail. So I feel like a lot of times people feel that there's a limitation, and it's actually the reverse. The limitation isn't in direct mail and having a rich, deep record where you can identify all kinds of things about a person beyond age, income, and home ownership. That's available on direct mail. I think people miss that piece. We can find things online, bring them into the direct mail, and communicate outside. To Mike's point, how many impressions do we receive in a day? How many online, digital ad impressions do you click through? Everybody has a channel preference. I am not somebody who's going to click on a display ad. I buy on social way too much. You can ask my husband, but I don't typically click on a display ad on a website. If I'm on a website, I'm kind of looking for something and then I'm gone. And I don't pay attention necessarily to some of that landscape. Other people are like me and they need to feel an offer somewhere else. They need to have kind of a tangible piece. And I want to research maybe a little bit more and have time. And those digital impressions are flying by. So I think they can work in tandem and the data can point you to the right people in targeting on either channel and in combination. So you're getting a few touches digitally. Now you're seeing a direct mail piece and maybe there's some follow-up digitally, but together they drive a lot more conversion. They drive a lot more response.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. So often we can say, and some of it is in our marketing bubble on LinkedIn, right? This is dead, that is dead, outbound's dead, direct mail's dead, social is dead, email is dead. What's alive anymore, right? And the answer is some things are dead for some people at some stage in life or personality type. I was sitting looking over one of my team's shoulders the other day and I was like, oh, that's kind of a funny ad. And it was on the right side. It was a display ad. And he was like, oh, I didn't even see there were ads on this page. Ad blindness is a thing, you guys.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that display is dead. I'm not going to say that either, right? Curious kind of some of the things that you're seeing maybe change as well, Bethany, when it comes to retargeting. We were mentioning some of the going from digital to direct mail with kind of the kind of the easy entry point Mike was mentioning earlier.
Mhm.
Anything else on the audience building side that you wanted to touch on as well?
Yeah, I think it's intent, right? So someone's out
Okay.
searching. Some of that's going to change now with AI and AI powering Google search. And that's going to be a changing and evolving landscape. And I don't think any of us can kind of predict what that's going to look like. But intent signals are a big one. And I think that's been happening for some time and it's not new, but I think the way in which people need to use it is new. So if I'm interacting online and someone's got a pixel and they retarget me because I was, looking for a product or looking for something, they can retarget me a million times digitally. But I think that intent signal needs to come out of where it kind of lives and be utilized in other ways. If your intent signal was captured on a Google search and you're looking for something, what else about you can we glean from either digital signals or from your demographics that are already in a rich mailing file and marry those up? So you're not just looking at what someone did one time online, you're kind of marrying that up with other pieces of data that tell you more about a person. The intent is one signal. There's a whole bunch of other signals that can marry up and really get you targeting the right person. At the end of the day, no matter what channel you're using, if you're not getting it in front of the right people, you're not going to get the response that you need and you're not going to have a successful campaign. So I think it's about digging in a little further than one signal from one place and marrying that up to be a little bit more of a rich target.
Well, and what you mentioned, pay-per-click, digital ads, if you're going to search for a product or service right now and you're going to an LLM versus going to Google, guess what? The company that you think you want, you may not ever get to because the LLM is going to tell you what you need to click on or what you need to go to next. And the issue is there's a lot of trust. A lot of people talk about distrust with ChatGPT and LLM. I find that to be completely untrue. I think it's building trust every single day because every single day it's getting better and better. So if you're going on and you're looking for a new car, the LLM is going to tell you what new car you want based off of some very, strict guidelines that you gave the LLM to find that answer. But here's the difference with direct mail. We can actually find that customer for you. If you have a new product or service, guess what? No one's ever heard of it before. The amount of technology companies coming to Gunder to find out how they can get in front of B2B businesses is huge because they can't win on anything else. They need to bring their product and service to the buyers, but the buyers don't know they exist. So direct mail is just a really great way to introduce new products, introduce new brands, and introduce new services to consumers and businesses that never heard of it before. So it could be like considered almost a secret weapon because if you do a really good job with targeting, you're going to get that piece of mail to the right person or that decision maker that's going to be likely interested in your product and service.
Yeah. I also think it's really important. It's not one channel versus another channel. I think right now marketers are really conservative around their budgets, and everything has to bring in a strong return on investment. But where we see clients win the most is where the channels are complementing one another, right? And they're giving attribution shared across all of the channels, because it takes multiple touch points to get somebody to convert. And so recognizing that and realizing that is really, really important. We have done some testing recently with direct mail and frequency. We can tell that if we mail somebody 3 times, right, they're going to have a 43% higher conversion rate, and they're going to convert at a higher level. So that's another thing. They're going to be a better long-term kind of valuable customer. And those are the people we want, right? And so I think that's just an interesting note as well, is that it's how do we complement? How do we work together? How do we all give fair attribution across the board? Because we all win and excel when we are, working towards the same kind of, end goal.
Hmm. And Lindsay, maybe you or Bethany can kind of take this one. I think that frequency stat is so telling there on those 3 touch points, increasing it by 43%. Like that is not something to just kind of gloss over. I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, personalization in some of the ways we've seen that is now enhanced and we have more options is driving a good bit more as well. And we've been talking about kind of the digital signals, but there's also signals and data kind of hiding in our CRM, hiding in plain sight that should be part of this as well. Where are you guys seeing the conversations and maybe the opportunities for clients and those running direct mail campaigns in that area?
With CRM, I think that people have a gold mine and they don't necessarily know that. So they may have pieces of it and they're thinking, it's just not a full record. I don't have enough to get into creating some versioned piece. They can augment that data, enhance it. We can determine what's a profile? What does your customer look like? And then how can we figure out how to get at that? So it's not, that they're limited by what they've captured already. I think people have a gold mine in their CRM if they just utilize it. We can marry that into an acquisition campaign and compare them and look at, different segments and do analysis against both. And it always performs. So I think that people need to not feel limited by what they have in their CRM and dig in and figure out what else we can add that can make it more interesting to the recipient of the mail piece and really talk to them about upsells or cross sells or new product launches or anything like that.
Yeah, and pending emails, just the pending emails is like a no-brainer. Like,
Yeah.
especially now, the append rates are anywhere between 60 and 80%. So if you don't have addresses on your database, you can easily get addresses and you can easily do a test. And here's a fun fact. If you were a customer, if you're a current customer, if you were a customer, you're going to respond at a much higher rate than a prospect, 2, 3, 4x what a prospect will respond, because there's built-in affinity with that brand or service. You understand them, you know them. And so when you see that direct mail come across, you pay attention to it more. And so there's gold in that list, as Bethany said. And so if you're not doing acquisition or prospecting, you should be doing upsell and cross-sell on your customer database. Guess what? If they are no longer a customer, they have definitely unsubscribed from your win-back email campaigns. So the only way you're going to reach them is through, if they're searching or maybe a TV ad or something else, or direct mail. And guess what? Because you have had that relationship with them in the past and you maybe have an updated or better product than you did the first time, you can use that as a leverage point, a messaging point to try to get them back inside the door.
And so I'm so glad you brought up that win back campaign, because I think that's just gold that people are skipping right over, similar to the data in their CRM, as Bethany was saying. Lindsay, I think you were going to say something similar, same time as Mike there. So
I was going to say, like, it's interesting because, to Mike's point, acquisition and prospect metrics are very different from customer kind of metrics. And so a lot of people get confused when they're looking at benchmarks for success. Obviously, customers and or previous kind of customers are going to respond at a much higher level than just a cold prospect. So making sure you really have clear KPIs for those different audiences are really important. I was going to dive deeper into something Bethany kind of hit on, was just being able to profile our audiences. We're also learning that developing personas and leveraging creative to speak to people at, kind of their persona level is generating a higher kind of conversion and also retaining them at a higher level. And so it might not be something you can do widespread across your entire, file, but there could be pockets of certain types of audiences within your file that need to be talked to in a certain way from a, emotional or a benefits perspective. And you're going to see a much higher response and conversion rate when you start, making some of those creative adjustments. Something Denise could probably speak to as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to target that kind of stuff. And if it's okay, I'd love to start talking about the creative that I think goes into this. Can we talk
Yeah,
about
I was going to say it's a real
it's a
nice
perfect
dovetail. I'll pull
segue.
up some
So
of the
yeah, thank you,
creative that we
Lindsay.
have too under
Yeah,
Cheryl.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a client that works in the GLP-1 space. Yes, so this is the piece, one of the pieces, and the client was Mochi. And so we were going to do two pieces for them, which was the self mailer, which you can see here, and then we also did a letter and an OE. But I'll talk about this piece first, the self mailer. And what's important to know about this is, well, first of all, there's a Russian doll, which right away that's going to get your attention. But we didn't do a Russian doll just for the sake of doing a Russian doll, right? There was a purpose behind it. So we had some insight, like Lindsay mentioned with the personas, was that when people were trying to lose weight, they look in the mirror and they don't see themselves. The person that they thought they were, they're no longer seeing that in the mirror, right? So that's how we came up with this Russian doll, because those are the things where you like open one, you open another, till there's like a smaller one inside. And that's what people were thinking about when they were trying to lose weight. Like, where is that smaller me that I remember? Right. So we did this piece. It's, I think, beautiful with the blue and the Russian doll. Like, how many Russian dolls are you getting in the mail? Probably not very many. Right. So I think right away, it catches your attention. But again, it's not catching your attention just because it's this visual thing. There's strategy there, there's concepts, and there's human insight. So I think that's something that, like, when people are doing their own pieces, they have to know that all those things really have to be there, because that makes a difference. The human insight is the person who's trying to lose weight went, oh, this brand gets me. They know the struggle that I'm going through, right? So that really spoke to them. And I'll talk about the results, the data afterwards. So let's go into the next piece that we did for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the next piece is, this is again Mochi. And so this one, the insight is, this was targeting to women who were in perimenopause or menopause. And menopause is like all the rage right now. Everyone's talking about it. It's in social media. All the celebrities are talking about it. And so, Mochi hadn't targeted that audience. And so I said, well, these women are struggling. These women are not losing weight. I see it all over, like I said, social media, news channels, whatever. And women are like, I'm still working out. I'm watching what I eat. I'm lifting weights. I'm counting my calories. I'm not losing weight. And I was like, and I said to them, like, let's do this. Let's make this our piece. Let's target those women that are struggling to lose weight. And you know what? I want to say kudos to Mochi, because they listened to us, and they took a chance on both of these pieces. And then here's where the data comes in. It was their highest testing pieces. And, one thing I love about direct mail is you get to test the stuff and you get to see what works. And from a creative director and a copywriter, I love that, because like when I would do TV ads, like I had no idea what happened afterwards. I'd be like, I like the commercial, but I don't know if anybody bought it. So I really love that we get to test these pieces and see what works. And again, I'm really, kudos to Mochi, because they took chances on this insight. And again, insight on both of these. What I would say is some brands might be like, oh, I want to change things up, because these were both things they had never done. They aren't changing things up just for the sake of changing things up. There was insight to it. There was the strategy. There was the persona. All of that was there. And all of these ended up being their highest testing pieces. So, I'm really proud of these pieces.
Yeah, I'm curious if there are any other data points that you guys found interesting or surprising from both of these. I think the storytelling is phenomenal here, getting to know the person. We could even maybe talk about some of the You're talking about a persona as opposed to we're just targeting women in this demographic. Where you kind of built a persona around this, what they're going through. Same kind of works on the B2B side. Lindsay, I've heard you talk about kind of targeting the office manager versus the HR person versus the business owner. Sometimes that personalization works well too. So I love what you were saying, Denise, is it kind of relates and gives a real clear example of what Lindsay was just saying about the persona-based personalization and storytelling that can make pieces more effective. Anything else in the data on these campaigns that you think is relevant for folks, Denise or anybody else?
I would just oh, you go, Bethany. You
Thanks,
go.
Lindsay. I would just say that we talk about personas and we're talking about like this was a menopause piece. So it's, again, I always keep saying this, but it's so much more than age and gender, right? It's about people who are going through it. So when you pull data and you're trying to get this targeting right, you need to dig in beyond the standard kind of top level things. You need to look into, people who are making CPG purchases. Are they buying supplements that are helping them? What other ways can we really find people who are struggling through this particular phase of life and not just make assumptions around it, so that you're not just kind of lumping everybody together in a really big group and sending it out? We're really strategic in how we pull multiple factors up behind someone's, demographics and really, really make sure that the targeting is on point. And I think that is why we see so much success with some of these. The creative marries up really tightly to that targeting.
Yeah, I think it's
I was
fun for
going
us
to say, I wanted to confirm with what Bethany said, because I've seen her on like some stuff when we're like targeting certain pieces and she's like, oh, I can target this audience and that audience and this. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. So yeah, go ahead, Lindsay. I don't know. I just got
I was just
excited.
going to say, this is where like the data gets really fun. When we can tell that a client is direct mail responsive and we have a strong control, then we can get really under the hood, right? And we can identify different segments, right? And then test into that to see if we do something, different from a messaging or creative perspective, is that going to lift and generate higher response? And so I think that is like where we all get really excited and where we're really passionate. Because that's where it's fun, right? And so it's like not always the one size fits all for everyone. And that is where I think we're seeing a lot of growth in the direct mail space when you marry just like the creative and the data and the production all together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we're going to get to a few questions that we had pre-submitted to us. If you have live questions, looks like we got another one coming in the chat. If you want to ask your question, one of the things I love about Riverside, you guys, you don't even have to switch over to the Q&A. Just drop them right in the chat. If there's a question mark, it'll pull up as a question. We'll be able to bring that up on screen and answer some of those. Before we do that, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to take advantage of an offer from the Gunder team. We talked about QR codes, so we got a QR code for you guys here as well. The team makes this offer to everybody who joins live or watches the webinars in this ongoing series. As you can see, there's a lot going on, from data to creative to targeting to testing different pieces to having enough volume to have a good control so that you can take some swings without burning budget. The Gunder team will do a free direct mail strategy review for all qualifying webinar attendees. So if you if you scan that QR code, there's just a few quick questions you can answer to see if you qualify. Even if you don't, they've got a special gift for you that will help you see some creative that's working in other direct mail campaigns. It's called the Gunder Lookbook. We'll also put links in the chat because, as we said earlier, we want to give you guys a clear path, but also the options that work for you. So if you're having any trouble with the QR code, or you're just like, Logan, I'm not pulling out my phone on a webinar, I'll click a link. I'll drop that in the chat here in just a second, but I'll leave that up. And I wanted to pose a question to you guys that we got from a registrant actually before the webinar and live stream today. This was kind of a B2B application of direct mail. Let's see, I was just finding it, going through some of our chat from earlier. This one was from Nicola. If Nicola, you're on and I'm not pronouncing your name right, I apologize. But thank you for the question. It says, our most pressing question is how to break through the PA/secretary gatekeeper to the person you want to see the mail. So this would be in the case of B2B, which Mike, Lindsay, the whole team, I know you guys do a lot of work with direct to consumer brands, but you guys have some really great results working with B2B brands as well. What would you guys say, or what questions would you ask to maybe give some good advice to Nicola and their team here?
I mean, I could kick it off just from a creative perspective is get past the gatekeeper is the number one problem with B2B. So unless your gatekeeper is the audience. So in the case of maybe EasyCater, ZipRecruiter, sometimes that is who we want to target. So that's okay. But oftentimes we're trying to get C-level, VP level, and we need to get that piece of direct mail passed on to the decision maker, the person who's actually going to be signing the check or making the decision to bring on a new platform or a new service to the company. And there's a lot of different tactics to do that. One thing we really like is stealth envelopes. Still to this day, I love stealth envelopes, snap packs, things that look a little bit more official to where that gatekeeper is going to maybe be a little bit shy to just throw it away, right? This might look kind of important. I need to pass this on to my boss, and then let the boss make the decision since it is for his mail or it is intended for him. The other thing that if you have like a high ticket item and you can afford to spend a little bit more money, dimensional mail works really well. I love priority mail envelopes for the USPS. I think are around $7 a piece. If you're a large corporation, I know we were doing a piece for McKesson years ago, and we were using McKesson's FedEx account because their FedEx account allowed you to do 3-day mail for just, I think, $3 or $4 when it's normally $13 to $15. So if you have a corporate account, doing a FedEx type of mailer, priority mail envelopes, or UPS or FedEx, this is the number one way to get 100% open rate and get it to the intended recipient. And you can even do it with like a 9x12 with a couple of stamps, mailing it a little bit more expensive rate, maybe about $1, maybe $1. Tell me, Sheila, what is it, about $1 now or $1.25, something like that? You can get that through the gatekeeper that way as well. It's going to get passed on if it's something that feels a little bit more official, a little bit more substantial.
I would add to that too. Lindsay mentioned it earlier, doing a little bit of B2B to C. See if you can find that decision maker at their home address. You cut through all of the business clutter and now they have time to really read it, take it in, think about it, and it gets past the gatekeeper because the only gatekeeper might be their spouse or their dog. So you're in good shape if you get it to them that.
The other thing is do the exclusive offer for that person, something that is different from the other mass mail that they're getting. So not only can you look at the attribution that way, but it feels unique for them as that individual too.
Love it. It may also, speaking from my sales career, like trying to get past gatekeepers back when I was doing in-person outside sales, kind of depended on the size of the company, what strategy you would use. In smaller companies, maybe I could just build a relationship with that gatekeeper and get an introduction. In a larger company, I was doing, phone calls and I would just get caught in a loop. And so I had to go to email or go to digital or other channels like LinkedIn. How does maybe size of company or industry maybe play into this question and how you guys would respond as well, team?
I think the size of the company that you're marketing to, I think it has a lot to do with what you're offering, right? What is the product or service that you're offering and how many people are you sending it out to? If you're selling something that's expensive and it's a fairly small number of folks, like Mike said, you can get into a really intricate mail piece and level up several times. So it kind of depends on how large your audience is. The larger your audience, you have to spread out your budget across a lot more pieces. If it's small, like an ABM type program, you can really get fancy with that.
Yeah, some people might not remember, but when Square launched their payment, little dongle that went inside your phone, it was pretty revolutionary at the time. Any small business, makers all the way to small businesses could start to take Amex payments and Visa payments, and that was really not easy to do before then. You could literally have a merchant account in 5 minutes. And what we did was a very basic, simple, when we launched that program, simple self-mailer, 4x6 self-mailer. All it showed was a hand with a phone scanning, literally like swiping back in the day, swiping an Amex card. And the offer was get your free reader today, go to square.com/business. and it crushed because everybody wanted so the offer was the physical dongle, and everybody wanted it, even if they weren't planning to take payments for it. And so they had the perfect storm. They had a picture worth 1,000 words, literally, like you knew exactly what the product did and how it was going to work. And they had just an awesome offer. Get your free dongle today. We'll ship it to you within, 3 or 4 days. I mean, that's brilliant. It didn't have to be an expensive package. It didn't have to be, pages and pages of information, just a simple self-mailer that told them everything they needed to know and an image and just a few bullet points.
Mhm. Man, I love that story. And it seems like the stories about these specific campaigns and ideas have really been what's kind of struck a chord with everybody today. Natasha was just saying, I love the Russian doll strategy. It's incredibly spot on with that audience. Kudos to the Gunder team there. I think that those kind of specifics in breaking down those campaigns are so helpful for folks. A couple of things I just wanted to call out from this one, you guys, is Bethany's line about the gold mine in your CRM. Mike talking a little bit about not just thinking about cold audiences, but those win back campaigns where they've unsubscribed. How else are you going to get back to them? Well, maybe go to a channel where it's shown that they will respond to you more. Right? Lindsay's points about frequency and personalization. We kind of kicked off this conversation, team, talking about the things that were being discussed at the National Postal Forum and some of the things you guys are kind of taking back to your clients at Gunder. I'm curious, kind of open the floor for the last 3 minutes here. Anything we didn't touch on that, you guys came out of that talking about with clients and with the team? It'll be a free for all. If we have two people speak at once, we'll arm wrestle for it. Something like that.
Well, I was just going to say that the one thing that I think you're going to continue to see a shift is there's going to be more and more stuff you're not going to be able to believe. And whether that's advertising, whether that's your inbox, whether or not the offer you receive in your inbox is from the actual company that is sending it. Direct mail has to go through some scrutiny, right? It's expensive. Yeah, it's a manufacturing process. You have to print it. It has to go through the USPS, so it has to be vetted, and a pre-sort standard postage indicia says that this mail has gone through the USPS. So it's a trustworthy channel, and more it's becoming the most trustworthy channel. So I just want to leave that with people, because I think as we get into and continue this world of AI and AI slop and things that you just can't believe, direct mail is real. It's in your hands, it's physical, and you see it right in front of you. And I think there's something there. And I'm excited to kind of see where direct mail ends up in the next, 5 to 10 years, leveraging the trust of the consumer.
I love that. Awesome, Mike. Well, if you haven't yet, guys, sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. As I'm trying to get that link back into the chat for you guys, because I noticed that it didn't turn purple to where you could click it, and I wanted to make sure that that was there. They look like they all did now, you guys. So we got Mike, Lindsay, Bethany, Sheila, and Denise. All of their LinkedIn profiles are right there in the chat for you. So if you're not connected with any of the Gunder team yet, or any of the folks on this call, make sure you go and connect with them and let them know that you attended the webinar today. As you can see, lots of different expertise coming from different disciplines within direct mail and across marketing. Thanks for the clapping emojis. I'm seeing some of those come through in the chat, you guys, as well. I'm going to drop that link one more time and make sure that that is clickable for you. So if you didn't get a chance to click that link, scan the previous QR code to see if the Gunder team can do a free direct mail strategy review. I've seen some of those, you guys. They will look at your audience. What is your competitors mailing? How reachable is your audience in the mailbox? And even build out a pro forma for you so that you could say, hey, whether I work with Gunder or do this myself, or I'm not even sure where to start with direct mail, you'll have a game plan to look at some of the data from there. All right, guys. Well, Mike, Bethany, Sheila, Lindsay, Denise, I'm going in order that you are on my screen. Thank you so much for joining me on the mic today. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned. We will share this recording in your inbox. If you haven't unsubscribed yet, if you have, maybe we'll see you in your mailbox to let you know about the next webinar. We're planning some more things, maybe around some of these B2B applications, as we got a lot of questions around that today.
Thanks,
you
Logan.
guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye. See you
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Bye.